So, hi, everybody, and welcome to our Thoughts on Thursdays. And today we're going to continue talking a little bit about the topics and quotes that we reviewed last week. And I put them in the chat. And when we go on YouTube, I'll try to get them into the comment section so you can see what we're talking about. But there are a variety of quotes that a friend of mine gathered and shared with me when I was visiting her last week. And I thought they were pretty interesting. So I sent them to Mary, and then she sent them out to the group and asked everybody to look them over and pick one or two just to talk about. And while we were talking last week, I realized that, a lot of those quotes kind of lead us to the same place. And I think Cecilia's comment was, she's heard many of them maybe reformatted or rephrased by different people. And they all have a good story or something profound to share. And I loved what we were talking about last week, and each of us chose one or two and shared it and kind of contemplated on some of them. And they seem like they're quotes that we all pretty much know in our life and try to live. But my question today is, why is it so hard for us? We see these quotes. The one I chose last week was don't have to try harder. You just have to resist less, something to that effect. And, during our day-to-day lives, we all get kind of caught up in stuff. Why is it so hard to remember these things? So I thought I'd bring it to the group and see what everybody wanted to share about it.
I think we know what we know and it's knowledge and we know it, but we get lost. We just always get lost in experiences. We get lost in the experiencing the experiences, which
Yeah.
is the experiences are separate and than the knowing
Okay.
of it. Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. Okay, Renee, you're on now. Go ahead.
Okay, we must love who we are. I can't remember the whole thing. In order to love who we are, we cannot hate what we have experienced. And that is so profound and so important a recognition to have, because we are who we are because of what we have experienced. And you can't sort of dissect yourself away from life's experiences and how they've shaped you and how they've formed your beliefs and or what matters most to you. And sometimes the things that were really difficult in my own life, I would think, oh, why is this being, why am I going through this particular scenario at this time? And then I could see, but only after the fact, I only see in hindsight how everything was so beautifully and intricately woven into tapestry that somehow all made sense. And without one experience, if it hadn't happened, other things could not have followed. So it is divinely ordained, it is very intelligently designed, and it is quite beautiful in its sort of own way. But, when you're going through the shit, to be quite blunt about it, you may not have that perspective. So it's a gift in a sense, but you don't always receive it as a gift. So that's what I'll say for now. It's a very good topic to explore.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And you're right. When you're going through it, it seems like that's you get so caught up in the going through it that sometimes it's hard to be able to step back and reflect. I think that's what Chelsea was talking about too. It's a good comment, Renee. Thank you. Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to comment on what Renee said. It struck me as such an artistic comment, and Renee is an artist, and art is all about repeating patterns and being able to stand back from them and see what the bigger picture is in the scope of these repeating patterns. um, and and we see in a different way when we look at close and then we stand back. Um, I just thought that was so beautiful, Renee.
So I have a comment about that. One of my favorite quotes, I won't get exactly right, came out of the Richard Bach Illusions book. Every problem has a gift for you in its hands. Look for the gift. And so that has really, really stuck with me, and it has helped me through so many things. One of the examples I like to give was I've done a lot of temporary work, and I had a temporary job. It was only supposed to be a couple of weeks. I ended up being there for like 3 or 4 months. And this guy was the worst guy in the world. I mean, he was just nasty. He chewed my ass like 3 times. And he was a bit of an egomaniac. And I was there long enough to get to know people, and it wasn't just me. And it was cool that it was a temporary job because it was during the time that my mother was dying. And we had enough people to, help and whatever. And this guy chewed me a couple of times, and then my mom died, and so I took a day or so off. And then the day I came back, he did it again. He knew my mother had died, and he just like, I don't even know what it was for, some stupid thing. And I'm sitting in my cubicle, and I've got tears in my eyes, and somebody else comes by, and is giving me sympathy, and it's like, I'm not crying about my mom, I'm crying about him. And it was horrible. That was an absolutely horrible thing to do. And it took about 6 months. And I went, oh, I know what the gift is. This gave me something to have my attention on besides the fact that my mother was dying. It was a distraction. And I'm sitting up straighter right now just thinking about it. I really wanted to go hug the bastard, but there was no way I was going to go back and do that. But that was my gift, that there was something else besides just focusing on my mom.
And that's beautiful, Billy, that you were able to see it as a gift. And that's kind of a gift right there, that you were able to notice that it's not all bad. There is something good in this, and there was a reason. And I like that. I like
Yeah,
shit. So thanks
yeah.
for
I
sharing that.
always look, and there is, if like if you're looking for work and you didn't get this job, then you end up with something more satisfying. Or I mean, it happens all the time. We just have to notice.
Yeah. Yeah. Good share. Thanks. Doreen, I see you're unmuted. Have something to share?
Yeah, I've experienced stuff like that too. And uh, the other gift in a situation like that is it's about the other person. It has nothing to do with you at all, which is almost, I don't want to say it's the opposite of the gift that you had also received, but also, that sort of behavior is the gift is in being able to observe it and know it has nothing to do with you. Nothing.
Yeah, and being able to keep that front and center when you're in the middle of receiving something that's not very pleasant is huge. So yeah, that's a good thing. And that is kind of living some of these quotes that we were talking about last week. It's like just being the observer and not getting caught up into the emotion of the experience. So, but I'll go back to my initial question. Why is it so hard for people to be able to do that? I mean, look at how crazy our world is right now. And I think a lot of people know this stuff. I mean, these quotes are like everywhere. People read them and like, oh, yeah, yeah. And then why is it so hard to live? Mary, go
I
ahead.
would say, oh, go ahead, Mary. I'll wait for you.
Okay. What came to me is it's hard because it's hard. It's hard because it's supposed to be hard. Um, it's like being in AP English. It's supposed to be hard because that's how we learn. That's um, how we progress is by working hard on a problem. And it's probably because I taught for so many years that every September when the kids came back, you'd spend at least a month reviewing what they forgot over the summer. And we did it again. And then after Christmas break, let's see what you remember. Did you flush the handle on the side of your head again? And, it all went away. Okay, let's review. Earth is the place where souls go to school. And we lessons repeat. I think patterns repeat because we haven't gotten them ingrained. And I think most of you will notice that over time, some of these things have become automatic. That we know how to step back, we know how to observe. We catch ourselves in anger and stop it better than we used to. But we're not perfect.
Okay, and then Mary, yeah, I was thinking along those lines as well. And I was firstly, a lot of times things feel hard because we're not practicing, and we're not practicing because we're not surrounded by other people who are practicing. Because for people become professional at things because they're surrounded by other people who are practicing it, and now it becomes easy. So hopefully it will start to get easier and easier for everybody. The more we can at least have a few more people who are practicing. And I think the second component of that I was kind of feeling was you have to want to, and it has to be something that you want and you feel has value. And like poor Mary is a school teacher. Us kids, we didn't see value in any of that shit. We didn't want to learn any of it, at least not now, not at that time, maybe later. So that's a whole nother discussion. But I think people are starting to see value in getting good at weaving these quotes and things into their lives.
Yeah, I like that. I like what both of you shared, so thanks. And they both make a lot of sense. So, Gino, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I think the older I get and the more inner work I do, the more I expose myself to people who are great teachers and so forth and books and whatnot. I'm learning more and more that, what you say, how you say it makes a huge, huge difference. How you think makes a huge, huge difference. So I would never say that life is hard or that this is hard or anything like that, because that immediately says, okay, that's the way it is. That's the way it's going to be from now on. And less and less I do that. Now, I'm not saying that literally there's not any experience on Mother Earth, that isn't hard. I mean, there are hard experiences. I mean, some people in the world are going through heinous conditions. But I just for our average person here, let's say in this country, um, we don't have to make it hard. And it might be hard until we learn that it's not hard. So we have to keep doing that inner work. And then realize too, as soon as you say something like that, it's hard. As I mentioned last week about the conscious and subconscious, right? Uh, your conscious keeps saying this, and your subconscious says, "Cool, all right, I'm on board. It's hard." So I kind of look at things more that way.
And that's good. And being aware of that is huge. And you're right, words matter, they carry a lot of power, and how we look at things and how if we can reframe them and what we believe. I mean, I remember I had a friend who was talking about something that she was irritated about at work. And I mean, she said to me, "This is killing me." And I just looked at her. I'm like, "Really?" And sure enough, she developed cancer not that long after.
There you go.
And, it's like, I guess so. She knew what she was saying. But, and then I would take her to the acupuncturist. This is when I was still an acupuncture student myself. So I'd take her to an acupuncturist that was one of our instructors. And I wanted her to get better, get resolve the cancer. And we were having a conversation about it one day, and she said she didn't think she was going to, and she didn't really want to. And her comment was, "They need me on the other side." And I'm like, okay, what can I say about that? That, who am I to say what? It's like, okay, if you feel that way, all the power to you, that's, and then she wanted me to be with her on her birthday, the night she was going to transition. But then, she had one friend who hadn't come to visit yet, who lived back east, and her friend couldn't make it till the following week. So we were sitting there talking, and she was debating, and then she decided, well, she did want to see her friend. That was more important to her than dying on her birthday, which she thought was pretty cool also. But seeing her friend one more time was more important. So she did. And it was just so interesting. But so yeah, I think words have a lot of power, and just being clear about, who you are and what you want to do is helpful with all this. I know that's a little bit off topic, but go ahead, Mary.
Well, it's not. And as I was talking about teaching and learning and students, but there was this meme in the 60s that was, it could be my whole purpose in life is to serve as a warning to others. And I think even though we're all learning here, we're also all teaching. People look at us and they might say this or that, but they might also say, how does she stay so calm? Um, she's changed. What's she doing different? And we look at the teachers around us like Dalai Lama. He doesn't get up in the morning thinking, I'm going to teach people how to be serene. He just is. And he becomes our teacher by living it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's beautiful. And yeah. And I think that's really the way to be, We can talk at people all we want, but it seems like seeing it in action is more powerful. Go ahead, Chelsea.
I think it's interesting, the kind of the main topic that you brought up, Barbara, about why if we know all this, do why are we still like seemingly going through struggles and trials, um and then it seems to just exactly tie into the story of your friend who had some wants and desires for her life. But it was really interesting because the story was, for me, more about what you wanted for your friend and what you were hoping, and the healing you were wanting for your friend. But your friend just wanted to, and I imagine there was a moment when you're like, oh, I want this for her, but she wants something else. And so I have to, you know, look at myself. What is it about me that wants her to be better? And, you know, and it's kind of like exactly the example of just looking at other people, and it's like, why in the world are people seemingly suffering when they, when there's lessons to learn and, you know, evolve with. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's an yeah,
Tongue tied putting it into words.
sometimes words are so hard. So, but what I think I'm hearing you say is, yeah, I had to look at what I was thinking, and then kind of look at what she was thinking, which was at cross purposes, and decide, okay, how am I going to proceed? And my respecting her wishes. I mean, I'm just kind of peripheral in her life. She's like the main one. So what I want, um, I certainly don't feel like I had the right to say, "Oh, come on, really? There's so much to live for." So yeah, it was interesting.
Oh.
You saying that, Barbara, kind of this is gonna be a little bit of a confessional for me right now, but um over the years, I wasn't always like this, but over the years I started to realize I smack talk and I trash talk a little bit. And not so much outwardly, but inwardly, like you were saying, Barbara, it's like inside you're like, are you kidding me? You just want to die? you know? And so right now in the present, I'm very sensitive to that, and um paying attention to uh, a more gentle way of just going, wow, I mean, if wherever the most joy can find you, then that's what you should be doing. It should most certainly not be what I think. um, and that includes my own body. I find myself, like how people say, as you get older, you have all these aches and pains and stuff. And then like the worst thing you can do is be sarcastic with your body and go, oh, I mean, I can't even do that, and now I'm sore. Um, that's kind of really how it's coming up. And no more of that. And instantaneously, like everything gets better when you stop. Because I knew somebody who got MS, multiple sclerosis, and he trash talked his body like crazy. He just hated his body. And he eventually died years later because he just hated it. And somehow this ties in with your question, your original question, Barbara, about why is it so hard. um, and I think we have these habits of just having a little tantrum if things don't seem like they should be, and then we don't correct the tantrum because we don't see people around us correcting the tantrum, and next thing you know, you're dead.
Well, that's one nice thing about our thoughts on Thursdays is that we have the opportunity to come together. In fact, last week when I joined the Zoom from back east, it felt so good. Afterwards I'm like, ah, I was with my tribe. It was so nice, because I had been spending a lot of time before that with family. And family's good, I'm not saying anything wrong with it, and I had great times with them, but there's just something about being with your tribe, people who are like-minded. And yeah, it was nice. So yeah, I'm grateful for all of you. And yeah, I mean, it's it's nice to be able to share these things with each other and just kind of reinforce, like you were saying, Doreen, just kind of reinforce and remind ourselves and remind each other what it's all about. So, any final comments? It's getting kind of late, but any final comments before we wrap it up? Renee, go ahead.
All I really wanted to say is the person you are most harming is yourself. The thoughts that you choose to think harm you the most, and they do harm other people around you as well. But it's your perspective on whatever is happening that can either elevate you, lift your spirit, or give you some clarity about what really matters most. And I have a family member who lives with ALS in the hospital, 6 years now, cannot talk, walk, move, do anything. Yet part of her spirit is the most alive part of her. And when we think about I would say that she is the most incredible example of that, because many people in her family think she should have been gone already, long time, yet she's still here. She can't do anything. The quality of her life is, very compromised and not a lot of fun from my perspective, yet something still keeps her living, waking up every day. What it is, I don't know, because I can't talk to her. She can't share what it is, or she can't share at all, except she shared presence. And God has, if you want to say God or the Spirit or source love, has the final say in when that person's life is going to end. So while she's still being given the gift of life in whatever form that's been presented to her, she's still hanging in there somehow. And I don't know how, truly. I can't even visit her. It's too painful to walk into that room to see what I see on the other side of the door. But gotta be some connection with your attitude, and your perspective about whatever it is that you're dealing with. So
Wow. Yeah, that's Oh, Louis Trace. Renee, you're jumbling now. Are you still talking?
No.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's powerful. That's really powerful, and that's interesting about your cousin, and you're right. I mean, it's something that none of us really know, and her spirit just definitely sounds like it's strong. So, Louis Trace, did you want to share something?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
First of all, what is exactly while she's hanging in there? What is lessons for us not to take life so easily and to learn to be grateful because she is showing us, in spite of everything, she is still living. So there is lessons. Other people take on the hardship for us around them to show them for us that life is precious and that we must more appreciate in the position that we are.
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Thank you. I don't think I would have thought of that, but that's, I respect your thinking of that. So thanks. Thanks for sharing that. And I guess with that, we'll see you next week. Thanks everybody for the shares and the different perspectives. There's a lot to kind of think about now afterwards.
All
And
right.
Renee, wow, 6 years with ALS to that degree is really something. So yeah. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Everyone,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
bye bye.